All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up with my two-bus processing. So really quickly, this all comes back to a situation where I'm looking at my macro faders at any point in time. If I ever feel like I need to make something, make a change, I like to go to my macro fader before I start messing up all my little ratios in between, kind of like all the volumes that I had already gotten like within like the piano and all that stuff. I'd much rather go to my music bus and just bring it down. Sometimes if somebody asks for the drums to hit harder, maybe what you can do is just bring this down by like a dB, and that will just make the, drums hit a lot harder. Maybe it's not the actual drums hitting harder, but the music is too loud, so I always would try something like that first. But yeah, pretty much after that, we look at a situation where I use the Oxford inflator, and I love using the Oxford inflator because it gives a lot of density, just kind of makes the whole mix sound a little bit more heavier, a little bit more hyped up, a little bit more energetic, kind of like me with my personality and how I act. So that's why I kind of resonate with this plugin, and that's what I would always tell y'all, find a plugin that kind of resonates with you. It's like the sound that you hear in your head where you're like, hey, like this plugin is like, that's kind of like the sound I'm going for, and you keep using it, kind of make it your signature. So when I'm on the Oxford inflator, I like to use band split when I'm doing the whole mix because I don't want it to affect my low end. So, when you do the band split, it won't affect the 808 and kick and shit like that. But I just use just a little bit of it just to hype up the mix just a little bit.
E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de treta tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, cê deixa a pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometa assim. Essa minha...
So it just does something to the whole mix. It kind of beefs up the kick and everything like that. So great plugin. After that, of course, we know me. I love using my Fairchild, and I love playing with my knob, just kind of positioning the vocal and everything like that. Because that tube circuitry compression, it has a way of just pulling everything forward. So yeah, I usually like to scroll around through these different time consonants. And of course, I think the 3 and 4 have a slower attack than 1 and 2. But in terms of overall compression, 2 compressors are pretty slow attack and slow release. So yeah, I just love using this because it tightens up everything.
Joga na onda do leite, só malete dentro da suíte. Mas Sila aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo desse sim. Esses mano querendo meu feat. Pega a fórmula de fazer hit. Duas mina dentro do Jaguar, 35 pra não carburar. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de treta tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca.
So it kind of gets rid of that loose booty. It kind of tightens up that loose booty. Just really tightens up the kick, really tightens up the bass, and especially a sustaining song like this, it worked perfectly because you hear how everything just kind of gets pulled forward, like the vocal gets pulled forward, the music, everything gets pulled forward, and now it's like really in your face, kind of like a kid in the classroom, like, it was sitting in the back, but now it done jumped all the way up to the front seat, and now everybody knows it's there. Sometimes pulling stuff forward makes you more aware of it. Sometimes you want to make stuff sit in the back so you don't really know it's there, but it's still working. You fucking with the head, but sometimes you want to put it in the front, outright in the front, first place, so you can be like, whoa, like everything is in front of me, the vocal, everything is front. I can just hear everything, without having to push more volume or anything like that. Sometimes that's why you got to understand the analog components. After that, we had something like a Fab Filter Pro L, and I don't even recall doing too much compression on this thing. You got to watch out for the Fab Filter Pro L. It's a good limiter, but some songs, it just kind of will eat up the 808 and the kick. So I think there was like a little bit of light limiting here.
Cê deixa a pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometa assim. Essa mina joga na onda do leite, só malete dentro da suíte. Mas Sila aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo desse sim. Esses mano querendo meu feat. Pega a fórmula de fazer hit.
So pretty much it's only working at those times where the kick and the clap hit. It's kind of like those situations where both the kick and the clap are coming in. And of course, you know, we had the soft limiter, you know, the soft clipper or whatever working at one point on the drum bus. But then, you know, there's just some times where there's just a little bit of overshoot. And that's where I like to print my mixes down. You see how like I got my mixes printed and shit? Because you can easily tell from, you know, when you print your mix, like if your limiters are working the right way. Because sometimes you might have that shit limited, but then, you know, there's like, the way the limiter is working, maybe the releases and everything bumping, and you have like this big, huge spike and then everything like that. And it's kind of like the overshoot. So that's pretty much what it's called. Like when you got two people, which is two sounds trying to walk out the same door at the same time, that would be called like overshoot. Or maybe you got even 3 or 4 sounds just all coming in at the same time, which a lot of rap producers like to do. They like to layer their shit. You know, sometimes when you trying to get your song loud and shit like that, it could really be a pain in the ass. So that's why I use a series of limiters and clippers and inflators and all that stuff. After that, we had this plugin I love so much. And pay attention, all my limiters, even my bus compressor, they're all doing just a little bit, just like 1 dB at the most, okay? And giving me, for the most part, a lot of my volume. Like the Fairchild was giving me about 3 dB of volume. Then, you know, the Fab Filter Pro L is giving me my volume about 2.6, but I'm not really like limiting too much. So that's kind of what mastering is about, being loud. You know, mixing, you just want to be creative and everything like that. So let's look at this. A great plugin. Limiter number 6, I love the sound of the clipper. I love the sound of the limiter. It really just makes everything give a little bit more of anger. So that's what clippers usually do. Clippers usually give a little bit of distortion. And even the Oxford inflator got a clipper on it too. You see where it says clip at 0 dB. So if you want to use it as a clipper, you can. But I'm using the limiter number 6 right here as a clipper and a limiter just to give the mix a little bit more tightness, a little bit more volume, a little bit more of everything we love.
E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida. E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo.
And that's the beautiful thing, you know, like when you're mastering and stuff like that, mix bus processing, you know, it's a dangerous situation because sometimes you start losing your kick. You start losing your kick, your 808, all that hard work you done did starts going away. That's why you got to like listen to this shit and pay attention. So with the peak limiter, it has like, I guess what is multi-band or something like that. So I guess it's avoiding, it's not limiting the whole thing. Maybe it's not touching the sub and all that stuff like that. But whatever it is, it's clean limiting, clean clipping. And of course, you know, when you apply a limiter, it's kind of like you're squashing your mix. It's kind of like the panini press. I always make this example. It's like a panini press, you know, where they take the sandwich, a Cuban sandwich, and they squash it down. When you squash that Cuban sandwich down, what happens? The sides start coming out. All the cheese and all the egg or whatever, the peppers and shit start coming out the side. Pay attention how that shit literally applies to making music, bruh. Listen to the sides of the melody. Like, it kind of sounds like everything is cramped. So that's another important thing about limiting. Also knowing that the sides are going to start coming up.
Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida. E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilar.
And yeah, that's doing some magic right there, that plugin. After that, we had another maximizer, which was the Weiss maximizer. But I like to use this one specifically just because, like, I don't know, it gives even more hype, more saturation to the mix. It's another maximizer. I know the inflator is kind of like a wave shaper, a maximizer as well, but I love this because you get a bunch of different type of styles and everything like that. And this plugin is worth it. So just pushing a little bit of that limiter gain, just using a little bit of this effects processing. Sometimes there's like punch, wide, DS. I'm going to do another private video about this whole Weiss bundle because that's how fucking good it is.
Tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim.
And of course, this is why I love Studio Rack. It's so quick for me to, not only is it very fast for me to work and swap around plugins, like if I want to put there like that, boom, you know, so that's why I use Studio Rack, but also I can see the collective gain reduction between all of these processors through this. So that's another gem of why this boy Nick just love using Studio Rack. People always ask me why I use Studio Rack. Well, shit. I ain't never really said why I use it, but these are one of the game reasons why I use it. I can see how much limiting I'm doing all together just through this little thing right here, you know, all collectively. So yeah, I don't have to be like, oh, well, how much is this one doing? How much is that one doing? Oh, how much? I can literally see everything right here. So yeah, after that, you know, we have the Ozone 9, and the Ozone 9, we just using it as our true peak limiter. For the most part, of course, I did use a little bit of multi-band excitement, a little bit of, you know, stereo whiff just to the top to open things up, to, you know, go into the house and open up the windows and let the breeze come in. That's kind of the reason why I use this imager all the way up here. You know, sometimes you can just hop on it and click learn and play the song, and it will identify where it's at for you. But for the most part, let's just listen to how the Ozone 9, you know, these exciter and these imager really just kind of helped out the mix.
Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim. Essa mina joga na onda do lean. Só malete dentro da suíte. Mas se aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim. Elas querem o vulgo desde.
So that's kind of what mastering is all about to me, just making that bit hyped and making that bit loud. You feel me? Like when I mix, I usually don't even mix with a limiter on or nothing like that. I usually leave all this stuff to the end. Some people like to mix into it. That's cool. Do whatever the hell works for you. Me personally, I like to get my mix actually sounding good, then start to have the fun. Like, oh, let me see if I put this here, you know. But of course, the mix is gonna start changing, and you might have to make some adjustments. But that's why I keep all my macro faders right here, because sometimes you might limit the song, and now the level of the vocals changing. So then I like to have it really quickly right here. Like, oh, I need to bring all my vocals down. Oh, I need to bring my background vocals down. They're starting to pop out a little bit too much. Oh, my drums ain't hitting hard enough. Let me start pushing in to that 2-bus chain. You feel me? Shit like that is like why I love making music. You feel me? Because it's always changing. And that's the thing about making music too, is that you wanted to get it to sound good. Because if you mixing for other people, you doing a whole ass mix, and then they say, oh yeah, I want you to change something. Like, you know, you got to make sure that you kill that mix in the beginning. Because if they say, oh, we want you to change something, now you're going to start playing this cat and mouse game where, oh, you bring down the 808, but now the kick sounds like this. Oh, you bring down this music, but now this is popping out. And it's going to be a dangerous game. So you got to make sure that when you mix a song that you get it right. I love to ask the client questions, ask them what they're trying to get, give me a reference track, you know, just ask them, oh, you know, how was the production? Ask them how they was doing today, just so I can know what the hell their mood is and I could put it into the music. Because if I take the person, I take their mood, I take their experiences, I take their personality, and I put it into the music, I promise you ain't never gonna lose. You always gonna win. You always gonna win. Okay, so when it comes to the waves loudness meter, you know, just kind of like looking at where I'm at when it comes to the streaming platforms. I talk to the client. The client knows me, and you know, they know, like, usually I can get the mix up to like 7 LUFS, and you know, usually, you know, that's kind of why I have the hardware too, because the hardware just adds so much harmonic distortion. It adds so much, you know, weight, so much, you know, beef onto the whole goddamn mix, but then the actual number level stays low. So like you perceive it louder. So that's kind of why I got the hardware. And ever since I got the hardware, man, my mix has been going all the way up to 7, 6, 8, like crazy lufs, like crazy lufs. It's not even funny, but that don't really matter. Because when you're on the streaming platforms, usually 9 to 10 lufs, that's all you need to know. And if it's louder than that, they're going to turn it down. With me personally, I like to get my mixes up to 7 and 6 lufs because it's kind of like an ego thing. Like I kind of just want to know if you're in the car and you crank up that mix all the way, that it's still going to sound good. It's still not going to sound distorted. So that's why I make my mixes that loud. But at the end of the day, lufs is about how loud you perceive it. It's not, because once you go past 0 dB, you hit in the red light. You feel me? So lufs is actually the measure of how loud do you like perceive that bit. Like how loud do you think it is? Like how loud do you guess? If I put that bit in a big ass room and it's dark and you can't see, you know, you can't really see how the speaker is shaking. You can't really see, you know, how like the woofer is vibrating. How loud do you actually perceive it? There's some songs that like you crank it low, but it still just sounds big and amazing. You know, even when you go to the mall, it's certain sounds that just pop out a little bit more than other sounds, you know what I mean? That's just coming down to the arrangement, the way it was mixed, the way everything, like all the different sounds are being stuffed inside the grocery bag, you know, all that shit like that. You know, you can make your mix sound really tight and compact. So when you in the whip and you cranking that knob, boom, it just sounds so huge. It sounds so huge and big, and everything is still kind of, you know, in its position. So let's look at this really quickly before we get out of here. The lufs meter, you know, just kind of, you know, Spotify, usually I think Spotify is what? I think Spotify is like -9, -10. YouTube is like -14. So yeah, I just really get it at -9, -10 for this video. But usually when on my personal mixes that I'll show you guys, I usually get all the way up to 8, -7. But that'll be a different video for another day.
E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida. E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca.
So yeah, man, as long as you get it to like -9, -10, you good. You don't got to worry about it. Because anything louder than that, the streaming platforms is going to take it down. So yeah, this is pretty much the end of this lesson. I hope that you guys learned a lot, and this is going to be the first of very many.